Okay, Wildcats, today we're looking at journal page 8, inverse functions part 1. All right, example 1, find the inverse of the linear function. Now, to find the inverse, step 1 is switch x and y. Now, it's important to note that when we say h of x or f of x, that's equivalent to y, okay? So let's go ahead and just change h of x to a y, okay? We don't need to make that one of our steps. We can just do that, okay? Now, step 1, we're going to switch the x and y. So we're going to switch the x and y. So x equals 2y minus 9. Okay, now step 2, resolve for y. Okay, so now let's do that. So to do that, we're going to add 9 to both sides. So that's x plus 9 equals 2y. And we're going to divide 2 by everything. Now, if there's not a number in front of x, put a 1. So the inverse of y equals 2x minus 9 is y equals 1/2 x plus 9 divided by 2. Or you could write that as 1x plus 9 divided by 2. Either one of those is acceptable. Okay. All right, now let's take a look at example 4. Find the, actually, I'm sorry. Let's go in order. Let's do example number 2. Find the inverse of the quadratic function. So first thing, we're going to change h of x to y. And then first step, switch x and y. So x equals y plus 5 squared. Okay. Now we're going to resolve for y. Now, what we need to do is take the square root of both sides. And the reason being is the square root of x squared. Well, when we say the square root, that's the same as to the 1/2 power. Okay. So if you want to write that. Okay. I don't know why I just wrote that twice, but why that's significant, okay, is because when you have exponents, you multiply them. So 2 times 1/2 is 1. So this is x to the first power. Okay, so when you take the square root of x squared, that becomes the power of 1. So that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to take the, but remember, in equations, what you do to one side, you have to do the other. So we're going to take the square root of x and the square root of x, or y plus 5 squared. And the reason we did that is now this becomes the power of 1, and we're left with the square root of x equals y plus 5. And then our last step is subtract 5 from both sides. So our inverse is the square root of x minus 5. All right, let's take a look at example 3. Find the inverse of a cubic function. So again, we're going to change the h of x to y, and then switch x and y. So x equals y minus 2 cubed. Now, using the same logic from example 2, but slightly different, is the cube root of, let's just use a generic x, okay, is equivalent to this, x cubed to the 1/3 power. That becomes the power of 1. So what we have to do in example 3 is take the cube root of both sides. So that's the cube root of both sides. Now, this becomes the power of 1. So you're left with the cube root of x equals y minus 2. Add 2 to both sides. So y equals cube root of x plus 2. Okay. Go and finish up example 3. Let's take a look at example 4. Okay. Find the inverse of the square root function. Okay. So again, change f of x to y. And then we're going to switch x and y. So x equals the square root of 5y. Now again, using the same logic from here, but it's a little different. We're going to square both sides. Because when you square the square root, it becomes the power of 1. So you have x squared equals 5y. We're going to divide 5 by both sides. So y equals 1x squared divided by 5. Okay, go ahead and finish up example 4. All right, example 5. Again, change f of x to y, and then we're going to switch x and y. So x equals 3y squared minus 5. We're going to add 5 to both sides. So x plus 5 equals 3y squared. I'm going to go and put this in parentheses because they go together. Our next step is we're going to divide 3 by both sides. Okay, this becomes 1, and then we take the square root of both sides. The reason we do that, because this becomes power of 1, so our inverse is y equals the square root of x plus 5 divided by 3. Okay? All right, let's finish up. Let's do example number 6. All right, find the inverse of the logarithmic function. So change f of x to y, switch x and y. So x equals the square root of y plus 4. Okay, first step, we're going to subtract. You know what, that's wrong. That says logarithmic, but that's square root. Okay, so next step, subtract 4 from both sides. You get x minus 4 equals the square root of y. And then last step, we're going to square both sides. Remember, when you square square root, there comes power of 1. So your inverse is y equals x minus 4 squared. All right, go ahead and finish that up and start working on your assignment, and have a wonderful Wildcat day.